Today on Delicious Ambitious, we meet Kate Muegel, founder of online magazine Drop Dead Gorgeous Daily, and also the new e-course, Secret Blogger's Business. We start by asking her to tell us about Drop Dead Gorgeous Daily.
Gorgeous Daily is an online women's style site. It's kind of like an online magazine, but well, not like an online magazine. It is an online magazine, so it's a magazine that's online. So we cover fashion, beauty, lifestyle, and sort of it's been running for about 7 years. Got about 150,000 unique visitors every month now. Most of them coming through Pinterest, which we've got like nearly 100,000 followers on Pinterest, and that's one of our main sort of social media channels. We're sort of all about the doable. It's about making gorgeous doable. So it's beauty that you can actually go home and use, or products that you can afford, and how to wear different trends no matter what your body shape or what your budget, and trying to keep everything nice and accessible and fun.
And how did it start?
It started, I used to work in magazines, so I used to work for a magazine called Shop to Drop, which is, I suppose it's kind of similar content in that it's all about online, that was all about shopping. And when I worked there, everyone was subscribed to all these little newsletters. One was Daily Candy and one was a Melbourne one called Muegel. And it was really weird because everyone got so excited about these newsletters, but they couldn't buy anything that was actually featured in the newsletters, because it was something from an American store that didn't ship to Australia, or it was something from a little market stall in Fitzroy, and we were all up in Sydney. So it was like, why are people still reading this? They're still liking to find these new things, but they can't actually shop them. So that's when I decided that would be a good idea to do something along similar lines, just cute, fun little things you could buy, but have it all so that you could actually buy it no matter where you were. So at the start it was very Australian focused, so any online stores that were, like could be an American online store, but maybe they started doing international shipping, so we try and feature something like that, and it sort of just grew from there.
And so it's an international audience now as well?
Yeah, we do. We've got more than 50% are actually from the States, which is I always find funny because our content is so Australian seasonal centric.
Yeah.
But they still seem to come in, because a lot of it comes through Pinterest. They'll find, we'll have an article from the best summer hairstyles from 3 years ago, and they find that article and they're all reading that stuff. I'm like, it's not what they are anymore. That's really out of date, but sure, read it. That's fine.
And so what's your background then? What did you study and how did you get started?
I studied business marketing at Swinburne. I originally wanted to work in PR, but ended up, my very first job, which was actually in London, was in an advertising agency, and didn't love that. Did that for just a bit over a year. Just sort of, I did the London thing and did, tried to get as much travel and stuff under my belt. And then I just one day came up with an idea for a feature article. I'd always loved writing, but high school, what do they call it? What's the name of the people who tell, careers counsellor?
Yes.
Yeah, so I spoke to the careers counsellor in high school, and wanted to do something with writing, and they're like, oh no, that's really hard to get into. Don't, much safer going off and doing marketing or something, which is what I did. But anyway, I shouldn't have.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah, I know. Where are the people going? Follow your dreams.
Yes, exactly.
Just be practical, rubbish. But yeah, so when I was living in London, I came up with the idea for a feature article. It was around it was the end of Sex and the City, and there was that whole thing about that he's just not that into you. And I read it and I found it really offensive. And I thought, what about the cases when you're just not that into them? Because they kind of made it seem like it was just women sitting around waiting to be chosen. And I thought that, being a bit of a feminist, I thought that was really quite gross. So I pitched this article about, can go both ways.
Yeah.
And just being a bit cheeky, I suppose, I sent it to everybody. Like, I figured out what the email addresses were for like the editor of Vogue and stuff like that, and I sent it through to everyone, not really expecting anything. I thought maybe like the local paper or someone might let me, or those freebie magazines, they handed out the tube, I might be able to get it in there. Only heard back from one person, and it was Cosmo in the UK. None of the Australian people were interested. And yeah, they commissioned me to write it, and I wrote it, and it got published. I'm like, that's awesome, that's way more fun, I want to do that. So then, yeah, I went and came back to Australia and sort of hustled my way into magazines.
And And what was it like working at women's magazines? Like, was it really like Devil Wears Prada or?
No, not really. I have heard some Devil Wears Prada stories from other titles. I think I was pretty lucky. I worked at two pretty laid back titles. So I worked at New Woman, which at the time was part of EMAP. And EMAP was probably the most fun company I've ever worked for. Because the majority of, and it's rare for publishing, the majority of the employees were male. Because all the other magazines are like skating magazines or surfing magazines or, you know, mountain biking or something like that. So it gave it a bit more balance, I think. And the company as an overall was really social, and because it was quite small, you know, there was a lot of, inter-office kind of banter and going out and having drinks and, you know, just that kind of nice, fun culture and place to work. So there was no room for airs and graces, I don't think, because, you know, you might have a guy skateboard through your office any minute, so it wasn't going to work there. And then Shop Two Drop, which was ACP at the time, again, none of these companies exist anymore. That, you know, there were obviously more like prestigious titles in the building, and I had heard some horror stories from various other titles, but it was all pretty laid back. It was a pretty good group of girls, and everyone got along really well. So yeah, not too scary.
So how did you make the switch then from like the printed world to the online world, a whole new skill set?
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a nerd in that respect. I think I built my first website when I was 12, and back then you could build them in Microsoft Publisher. Like, you pretty much designed a page in Microsoft Publisher and hit publish to web, and that became a website. So it wasn't, you know, no real technical skills required, but everyone in my family has some sort of nerdy jobs. My dad's is an internet service provider, and my brother designs apps, and, you know, so it's kind of in the blood. But anyway, because I had that sort of background, a job came up they wanted to have a website for New Woman when I was working there, because it'd previously just been a static page with a picture of the cover that month that got updated about 3 weeks after the cover went on sale. But, and that was kind of when everyone was starting to get websites, and they were sort of looking for someone. And I was at that stage, the role that I had, you didn't really get to do any writing, and I was just really dying to do more writing, not necessarily to be online, but it was an option to, you know, to write more. So I just pestered the people that were hiring for it to let me do it. No one else wanted to do it. They were like, "Ooh, you know, online scary." No. I'm like, I can do it. And yeah. So I just bugged people until they gave me the job.
And then, so how did you know when it was time to leave the comfy, cozy world of a salary and go out on your own?
I think a whole bunch of things kind of just fell into place. I actually started DDG while I was working at Shop, and I worked there for about another 6 months. And, you know, I kind of started as a little side project. You know, I did have some grand dreams of just being able to do this little thing, you know, take a couple of hours a week and, you know, make me millions, which sadly hasn't happened. It takes a lot more hours than that, and I'm not a millionaire yet.
Give it time.
But, you know, sort of, I suppose you get to a point where you kind of go, I don't want to regret not giving this my all and not seeing what happened. Like, I don't want to just keep spending only a few hours on it and it just stays this little thing. And I was really enjoying doing it, and I had got some good traction. Like, I got about 12,000 subscribers in the first 6 months, which was amazing. And, you know, I was starting to get advertisers and things like that. And also around about that time, I got offered some freelance work, which is just a couple of days a week at 90%, just doing, you know, little bits of content for some of their smaller sites. So it's kind of like, well, there's never been a better time, really. And I was a bit bored in my job. Like, I'd been an online editor for nearly 3 years, and especially back then, I think now it's a lot better, but the websites weren't particularly exciting and the content wasn't particularly exciting, and it was just being a writer monkey, just churn out little snippets, and then, you know, that's not very fulfilling. So I thought, oh, I've got to do it one day, and so yeah, I just quit.
Took the plunge. So from kind of those humble beginnings as a little side project, it's really grown so huge. How have you known kind of what to do each step of the way?
Good question. I don't think I have. I think I've just sort of, you know, muddled along. I think it's all been quite organic. Like, for example, originally it was just fashion. Like, I didn't cover any beauty at all, just because it wasn't really my interest. there wasn't actually that many beauty stores that you could buy online, and I was still, because online shopping was so new, it was sort of a bit of a, well, what are people actually happy to buy online? So that's why I started with like purely fashion. And then then most of my advertisers were beauty, and it's sort of going, oh, this kind of doesn't make any sense because it's very hard to support beauty advertisers if you're not actually having any beauty content. So I started slipping some of that in, and then the beauty content's now one of my most popular sections. So it's just sort of, I suppose you kind of get to a point where you sort of, something has to change, and you just